Scott, I think you and I are both theater kids at heart. And we kind
and
of
in real life,
we like a little, not secretly. Is this a revelation to you? We're both kind of theater kids.
Yeah. To our listeners, certainly.
Yeah. And we, for this episode, we tried a little, theater. We tried a little like old school radio Foley art.
Totally. I did grow up listening to that stuff. Some end of Killers of the Flower Moon type business.
Yes,
exactly. Some real life effects. And how do you think it worked?
On reflection, it was deeply dorky, but that just works for us.
We did it. As you listen to this next part, listeners, just imagine we are doing this in front of the new mayor of Seattle. We are pretending to clink glasses, sitting way too far apart from each other to actually do it. Tapping with our
little fingers. Well, we apologize. That's really all I can say for this episode and every episode.
All I can say is it's time for Sound Politics. This is Sound Politics. I'm Scott Greenstone.
And I'm Libby Denkmann. It's a new year, which means new leadership taking over in the city of Seattle.
That's a very famous saying. I've heard it so many times. So while most of us were staring into the fog, trying to make out the fireworks at the Space Needle, a new wave of electeds were getting ready to assume office. So raise your small champagne flute.
Your NPR-branded small champagne flute.
That's right. An Evening with Morning edition branded champagne flutes that we found around the office. Raise your champagne flutes to City Attorney Erica Evans.
Clink.
Yeah. A new city council member, Dion Foster. A new city council president, Joy Hollingsworth.
And a new mayor, Katie Wilson, who happens to be here with us now. Cheers to you, Mayor. And I'm curious, when politicians get sworn in, do you cheers with like coffee? Do you cheers with Celsius? What do you cheers with?
What says we have to get to work?
Yeah, I mean, so I officially became the mayor at midnight on December 31st. Yeah. And I did stay up, although, I think I didn't actually take a drink, which perhaps I should have.
Wow.
Bad luck.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody needed one, getting launched into the job that you're taking on, it was you.
Well, 1 week into Mayor Wilson's term, we are checking in with her to talk about her goals in office, how she will tackle big problems facing the city, and what it is like to be in the national and, I guess, international spotlight. And we will talk with Mayor Katie Wilson right after a short break here on Sound Politics.
Be right back.
Here with Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson on Sound Politics. Mayor, I want to start with a big headline before we dive into the more, personal or policy details of your first couple weeks. Actually, a number of incorrect headlines from right-wing media over the last few days saying you aren't letting police arrest drug users in Seattle anymore. I read one from the Daily Mail that called you hyper woke, which was a new word I learned. Early contender, maybe, for 2026 Word of the Year. It was all a misunderstanding, obviously, over a policy that actually originated with another new official that we already mentioned who just took the oath of office, City Attorney Erica Evans. She basically said, let's start referring drug charges to a team that liaises with the diversion and treatment folks to decide if they're appropriate for that. So you said, when I make a change, I'll announce a change. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but I am curious if you were thinking about making changes in how the police deal with public drug use versus how past mayors dealt with it? Or are you planning to keep the same, approach as your predecessor?
Well, I'm planning to work very closely with City Attorney Evans as we develop our approach, and also with SPD, right? But we are not contemplating major changes to what SPD will be doing on the ground. I think the result that we are all looking for is that in a given situation, we are taking an approach that results both in an improvement to our public space and also to the best possible approach to that individual that gets them whatever help, whatever support support that they need. And so that means making sure that our diversion programs are, resourced, and that our officers are making good judgments about when it is appropriate to do an arrest, when it's appropriate to do a diversion, and that good judgment, is repeated at all steps in the process. And so we're going to be looking at getting that result. And my intention is to be as transparent as possible with the public about what we're doing and why, about what's working, what's not working. And so, yeah, that's why I said, you'll know when I make a change, because we will announce it.
Mayor, you're really under the microscope as you take office. There's a lot of eyes on you. Right-wing media, both locally and nationally, has been making a lot of hay with this policy, issue with diversion at the city level, but also other things. I mean, I saw that a couple of these right-wing independent journalists showed up to your inauguration and tried to make a viral video about Somali daycares, for example. It's a lot. I mean, how are you handling kind of being under this level of scrutiny and kind of being the target of this sort of messaging?
I mean, personally, my approach right now is to mostly ignore it. I did have some practice from the campaign of being under quite a lot of scrutiny and having misinformation flying around. And for me, we have a lot of work to do here at the city. And so I'm trying to just keep my attention on the problems that we're facing, on the levers we can pull to solve those problems. And, I don't think it benefits me or the city or anyone for me to get super involved in, squabbles and misinformation going on in the right-wing media ecosystem, if you can call it an ecosystem. I think this is a team effort, right? So we've got a great comms team here now in the mayor's office, and we're going to be working together to make sure that we're just keeping our eye on the prize, putting out accurate information, just there's things we can't control, and we just have to accept that.
I do want to ask you, I want to get a little personal. I was struck by this one moment in your inauguration speech that seemed vulnerable. I mean, you started your inauguration speech by saying, "This is my last unvetted speech. My team has not looked at it." Then you went on to talk about the kind of glad-handing and like civic boosterism that has often been seen as the classic mayor's job, a big part of it, some would say. But you said that you had this kind of crisis of conscience, is what you called it, about whether you could be the face of the World Cup, the stadiums, that kind of thing. And I thought immediately about Mayor Bruce Harrell, who, say what you want about him. It did seem like he really enjoyed that part of the job. And I am curious if you're taking notes from him or a different mayor or leader, or like, how do you get yourself in that headspace, especially with the World Cup coming?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think I've just read too much Sinclair Lewis or something, so that mandatory enthusiasm is anyway. I can do it. Don't worry. But yeah, for me, I think it's really I'm one human being, right? I have my own set of experiences and perspectives, but Seattle has as many perspectives as there are individuals in this city, and so for me, it's really an exercise in empathy and really understanding the legitimate excitement that people have for these things, right? And just being able to appreciate that and feel that myself and channel that for the city. And right, it is exciting, right? We have a new waterfront. My parents are in town. They took my daughter to the aquarium the other day, and we're just, I love the Overlook Walk. And so, it's not, I was maybe exaggerating a little bit in my speech, but there is that dynamic there where I am having to step into a role that's just different from the one that I've played over the years. But I think that, this job is going to be a learning curve for anyone, right? So it's just a question of what kind of learning curve it is.
Well, it's interesting that you say it's a learning curve, because I do think you have these areas of comfort that most people are not comfortable in, which is the city budget and taxes and the, ins and outs of how policy is actually passed in the city. That's usually, I think, the harder learning curve for a lot of people to get into local government. And I do want to talk a little bit about taxes and the budget. The city's facing a shortfall. Past budgets, of course, have used the Jumpstart tax, which you helped champion in the first place to fill the budget hole. Do you anticipate that being the same thing the city leans on, that we go to the Jumpstart tax again to fill the current shortfall?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a conversation with the council members. And, I think the first thing that we're doing as we're looking at our priorities for this year, especially around the homelessness crisis, right, where I've made a commitment to really focus on getting people inside, and that's going to require, standing up new shelter. So the first thing we're looking at is just within the existing city budget, what is our flexibility? What can we do to fund the priorities that we have? What can we do to make better use of the resources that we have? And then, yeah, I mean, we have this large shortfall that's going to need to be addressed. And also we have, in the last budget process, there was funding put toward a number of programs, which are great things, including, food security programs, but that funding is one time. And so we're also going to have a question coming up on next year's budget about how to continue programs that we want to continue. So it's going to be a challenging conversation. I do think we're going to have to talk about new revenue. And yeah, I mean, I think with Jumpstart, ideally in my mind, we are using that money for what it was originally intended for, which is, tackling our structural crises around housing. And I think, if it's possible to unwind some of the transfers that have been done, I'm eager to do that. And at the same time, appreciate the gravity of the budget situation. And, we are going to need to make some hard choices.
When it comes to new revenue, capital gains tax was something that you talked about on the campaign trail. Now, that is not going to be filling the immediate need of this city because it takes time to kind of ramp that up and implement it if it does pass. You've also floated a vacancy tax, local estate tax, digital advertising tax, some other ideas. Is the capital gains tax the priority this year? What should people expect when it comes to revenue?
I think the capital gains tax is certainly the most shovel-ready new progressive revenue source that we have at our disposal. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we're going to be having a conversation around that for sure. The other ones that you mentioned, some of them are just require some more study to understand how we can do it in a way that is going to pass legal muster, that is going to be implementable. So we're going to be getting to work on looking at those as well.
I feel like the use of the phrase shovel ready tells me that you are in the mindset of building housing specifically, I think, right? One of your, maybe your central campaign promise was we're going to build more housing. It's going to help make the city affordable. And so we have two questions about that. The work that you were already doing before you even ran for, and even what got you into the race for mayor, was setting up this social housing developer that voters have made two big choices on: to set it up and then to fund it with a tax on highly compensated executives, or at least their businesses, for compensating them so highly. But how much mixed income housing that developer can build or buy quickly could be crucial, I think, to, at least your first term or affordability in the next 4 years. The developer itself is facing what seems like pretty intense internal, maybe turmoil. I don't know if that's an overdramatic word, but I know it's new. The tax money is just about to flow in. Advocates have called for the CEO to be removed. He still, last time I checked, hasn't moved to Seattle despite being hired in July. The board secretary said at a recent meeting she didn't trust any of the board. To be clear, you are not in charge, I know, of the developer besides picking one board member. But what do you think this baby developer needs to be successful? Is it a new CEO? What are you going to do to help it along its way?
Yeah, a lot of great questions. So, as you know, social housing was the thing that got me into this race. I mean, to give credit where credit's due, I actually can't take very much credit for, standing it up or passing those initiatives. There was amazing organizers and coalitions built around that I was involved in supporting, but certainly not driving. And I think it is so important that as the revenue from the measure that was passed last February starts to flow in the next few months, that our social housing developer is ready to receive that revenue, ready to make the best possible use of it so that we can begin acquiring, developing social housing in this city. And, I don't want to speak too much to the details of what's going on right now at the social housing developer. I'll just say that me and my administration are taking this situation very very, very seriously. And we are working closely with the developer and the board to make sure that the developer will be ready to receive that funding and to get to work. And this is very, very important, and we can't afford to delay. We can't afford to do this wrong. And I also think it's going to be important to really build the relationships between the city, my office, the developer, and other entities as well, right? The Seattle Housing Authority, the King County Housing Authority, because this is really going to be a team effort, and this new developer is going to need to, lean on other entities that have different kinds of expertise. And I think, one thing I talked about on the campaign trail is looking for ways that the city can use our bonding authority or other kind of finance expertise and assets to make sure that we can begin doing this at scale. So we are definitely very, very, very high priority, and I'm sure we'll see some things moving in the next few months.
Bonding authority, on the subject of that, you talked about $1 billion housing bond to build new workforce and social housing on the campaign trail. I know King County Executive Gurmai Zahalai has championed a similar proposal at the county, although there's questions about whether the county would have the dedicated revenue to pay that bond back. Will Seattle voters and the city council and everybody, will we see that housing bond being introduced this year, or what's the timeline on that?
I think we're going to be looking into whether that is the right way to go, right? I think that when we think about doing a huge bond like that, ideally the situation is that because we're building this mixed income housing, you're actually able to pay back that bond ultimately with rents that are coming in from that housing, so that you're not needing to totally rely on a dedicated tax funding source. But I think what we saw with the county proposal is that that's certainly not going to be possible for the entirety of that, $1 billion bond or whatever. So, we're going to be working with our budget and finance people at the city to see what our options are.
I want to talk a little bit about staffing, because that caught some people's attention, some of the decisions that you made both on your transition and in your city staff. Your deputy mayor is Brian Surratt, who came over from Greater Seattle Partners. The heads of the Downtown and SoDo Business Associations were on your transition team. These are all folks who are considered more, business friendly rather than labor aligned. You're the new socialist mayor of the city. People kind of took a pause and said, "Oh, interesting. That's interesting that she's added those folks to her team." Was it an intentional move to kind of have people with different perspectives on your team, or how did you see how you brought in folks, especially on your executive team?
Yeah, I think it's very important to have people bringing different perspectives. And ultimately, right, I'm a socialist mayor who's managing a capitalist economy here. So, there are so many issues where it's going to be really important for my office and the city to have a really good working relationship with the business community. And homelessness and public safety, I think, are really standout examples where we are all, right, businesses, large and small, residents, everyone is desperate for real progress on unsheltered homelessness and on public safety. And it's very important that we are working hand in hand with the business community on that. I think going back to what Scott was asking me before about big civic projects and everything, right? Despite the fact that has not been my work over the years, I do want my office and the city to be able to partner meaningfully on all of those things, and so that means having an administration that really reflects those different areas of activity that the city needs to be involved in.
Before we go, there's something that I just haven't been able to get over today, and I'm curious if you've seen the video out of Minneapolis of the ICE agents shooting fatally a 37-year-old woman behind the wheel of an SUV. Have you seen that video?
I have not seen the video. I read that there was a video, but I have not seen it.
The reason I bring it up, this is a shooting that happened on Wednesday. We don't know a lot of details. The Department of Homeland Security has said this was a self-defense move by the officer, and they've called the woman a domestic terrorist. The video is not definitive, all the different angles, but it does appear, from my perspective, to show that the woman was trying to flee, not run the officer over. But again, we're just getting this for the first time. We're talking Wednesday afternoon. It just happened hours ago. All of this is going to be more information will be coming out. But I'm thinking about it in connection with Seattle because the ICE escalation in Minneapolis was called in response to conservative influencers putting this Somali fraud allegations on blast, accusing daycares of stealing public funding. And I mentioned before that there were some influencers at your inauguration trying to kind of stir stuff up. This campaign to talk about these fraud allegations with very scant evidence is absolutely ramping up in South King County and in Seattle now. My question for you is, what if Seattle is next for an ICE escalation of the kind that we've seen in Minneapolis? Obviously, there was National Guard troops sent to Portland. That's been pulled back. But the ICE escalation issue seems like it is only going to be getting to be a bigger deal for the city. What happens if it happens here?
Yeah, I mean, this is such an important issue, and I feel so deeply right now for the Somali community and all the immigrant communities. Like, the fear is real, right? And so, my administration is reaching out, and we're going to be convening conversations and figuring out what the city can. We want the city to be the best partner possible in protecting immigrant communities, protecting the Somali community. Like, there is no excuse for this kind of vigilante, justice, people going to Somali daycare centers, and we need to do everything that we can to protect people. And yeah, I mean, the danger of a ramp up of ICE activity here is very real. We've known that for quite some time. And so, yeah, we're going to be working very closely with immigrant communities, advocates, and just figuring out all the levers that we can pull to protect people.
Is there anything else you want to leave us with before we go?
I just said I'm really excited. I mean, we're a few days in here up on the 7th floor of City Hall, and I'm really excited about the team that we've assembled in the mayor's office, and it's great just being in City Hall, talking to city employees, and I'm just really excited for the future of our city. I think there's a lot that we can do.
Thank you so much for joining us. Katie Wilson is Seattle's new mayor, and we will talk to you more, I'm sure, over the next 4 years.
Thank you.
So that was our interview yesterday, Wednesday, with the new mayor of Seattle, Katie Wilson. And Libby, I'm just curious what your takeaways were.
Yeah, first of all, I think we should definitely note that was taped Wednesday afternoon, and you heard she hadn't seen the Minneapolis video yet.
And there was a protest last night in Seattle, right?
So a lot has happened again since that taping. The thing that stood out to me was her answer about the capital gains tax, which definitely sounds like is something she's going to be backing this year. She said it was the most shovel-ready new progressive revenue source that we have at our disposal. The other taxes, it sounds like she wants to see more data on and see what is possible. But the thing that strikes me about that is I also interviewed the new city council president, Joy Hollingsworth, this week. And I had asked her about the Seattle capital gains tax. And she was very noncommittal in our interview. She had voted for the Kathy Moore introduced capital gains measure last year, but that didn't really have a chance of passage with Hollingsworth's vote. I just want to point out.
Yes, taxes, but only when it was a proposal that was never going to go anywhere.
It sounds, I mean, she didn't say this specifically, but, she had voted for it last year. And now she was saying basically she wants to hear what the progressive outcomes are for new revenue. She said, something like a child care credit or universal basic income makes sense to her, but not just plugging the budget gap. So Joy Hollingsworth, who's going to be, making the agenda for the council and really driving the council's day-to-day for the next 2 years, much less gung-ho on taxes and the capital gains tax specifically than the new mayor.
Yeah, sometimes I hope people don't forget that when we talk about the Jumpstart tax, we are talking about a payroll tax. It's a payroll tax on high earners at big companies in Seattle.
The companies pay it.
And the companies pay it, not the high earners. But the thing that Bruce Harrell got in some trouble with leftist critics for was using that tax, which much of it was supposed to go to housing and a bunch of other buckets. When they passed it, it had that design. He used it to prop up the budget. I'm just doing a little bit of review here. And if she does that instead of housing, she could face, if Katie Wilson does that, she could face some criticism. If she doesn't do it, she may have to lay off people at the city, some of whom could be union members who were some of her earliest labor supporters. That could also land her in a little bit of trouble. So I guess one of my takeaways was just that, like, I wonder, if some of the toughest work ahead for her is keeping her coalition together and happy with her. Maybe she won't. Maybe she'll be okay with making them mad sometimes, and maybe they'll be fine with it in the long run. But I'm actually stealing maybe a takeaway from you, Libby, that you made it a while ago.
You know what? I have so many great takeaways, Scott, that you can have that one.
Oh, wow. That's so generous of you.
I'm in a mood on a Thursday.
We spent an hour of kvetching before the taping, and it's seeping in. It's seeping in, baby.
We're loose.
I think that this take that you had that now I see every time I see her is like she was so uncomfortable talking to media and debating last year. She is getting better every single time. She's a little bit looser.
She's enjoying herself.
I swear to God, she enjoyed that interview. Maybe I'm making it up.
Maybe she's a really good actress.
Right. Well,
but no, I think she is. She's getting more comfortable. She's getting more, in the groove. And it's remarkable to kind of see that rise from a behind the scenes type person who was more in the policy weeds.
Right. The activist.
Yeah.
The rabble rouser, in her words.
Yeah. To being so comfortable behind that big desk at City Hall, talking to us with the view of the waterfront behind her.
Yeah, it's real.
It's really happening. Katie Wilson, mayor of Seattle, and looking like she is having at least a good first week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I guess I bring up that first note and the second note to basically say there are hard times ahead. I wonder how, it's her first week. We were pretty friendly with her in the interview. That's kind of how it is when people start, right? There's not a lot of hard questions at the beginning. Down the road, hard questions are going to come up. Her own base is going to push her at times. And I wonder how she'll respond to, how that new sort of self-confidence will respond to criticism. That's always a big test of a politician.
Everybody gets a honeymoon period, I suppose. That's it for Sound Politics.
Yeah, that is it for Sound Politics this week. Our show is edited by Cat Smith. Our producer is Hans Anderson. Shout out to Hans. We had some tech problems this week that he managed with absolute aplomb.
Yes.
I'm Scott Greenstone. I managed them with far less aplomb.
I can't even say aplomb. That's how little aplomb I had.
And who are you?
I'm Libby Denkmann, and I had a complete meltdown. This show is only possible because of your support. And hey, shout out to folks who keep this show going. People like Richard and Kimberly. Thank you.
Gosh.
Thank you. Thank you.
What I love about Kimberly's note when she donated is she said, I listen to the podcasts here and there. You do not have to be a diehard to donate to this pod.
Me too, Kimberly. Me too. Thank you so much. And if you want to join the ranks of Kimberly and Richard, the esteemed ranks, please consider a donation at kuow.org/politics. Bye, everybody.
See you next week.